whispered bedtime fairy tale. It's a simple story with a simple message that not many people have heard before. The summary is in the description below. Hans in luck. Once upon a time, there was a cheerful young man named Hans who had worked hard for 7 years as a baker's apprentice. One spring day, Hans decided it was time to go home, so he politely asked for his wages. "You have been a good worker, so your pay shall be handsome," said his master, and he rewarded Hans with a lump of gold as big as his head. "How lucky I am," cried Hans. "I shall come home a rich man." He carefully wrapped the gold in a handkerchief, bade farewell to his master, and started home with a light heart. But such a great lump of gold is heavy, and soon Hans became hot and tired. As he walked along, a young man came trotting by, sitting comfortably on a handsome horse. "Ah," said Hans admiringly, "what a fine thing it is to ride on horseback." "Then why do you walk?" asked the rider. "I have no horse, sir," Hans replied, "and this great lump of gold is a heavy burden." "Then let's make an exchange," suggested the clever rider. "Your burden for my horse." "How lucky I am to ride so comfortably on this handsome horse," Hans said to himself, "and how silly of that man to change." He rode merrily along, whistling a cheerful tune. After a time, he wondered whether his horse would not go a little faster, so he cracked his whip sharply. Away galloped his handsome horse at full speed, and before Hans knew what was happening, he flew through the air and landed on his back by the roadside. A farmer passing by with his cow caught the runaway horse. Hans thanked him politely and looked at the cow with great admiration. "What a fine animal you have," he said to the farmer, "and far less dangerous than this wild horse of mine. If I had such a cow, I could walk along leisurely with her and have milk and butter and cheese, free of charge." "Then let's make an exchange," said the farmer, looking at the beautiful horse with greedy eyes. "I'll take this dangerous horse off your hands, and you can have my gentle cow." "How kind you are," cried Hans, and the exchange was speedily arranged. The farmer galloped away on the horse, happy with his clever bargain, but Hans was just as proud. "How lucky I am," he said to himself. "All I need to buy is a piece of bread, which is certainly cheap enough, and then, whenever I'm hungry, I can eat it with good rich butter and cheese, and wash it down with the freshest milk." He was already so fond of his cow that he stopped by a pasture fence just to let it rest while he petted. Before long, he felt very hungry, and, leading his patient cow by her halter rope, he hurried straight to the nearest village to find an inn. He sat down on a wooden bench under the grape arbor and gave the innkeeper his last penny for a big slice of good, fresh bread, hot from the oven. The bread was so tasty that he ate every crumb and did not even bother to ask his cow for some of her milk or butter. "Forgive me, my friend," he apologized to the cow, who was waiting patiently, tied to the arbor, "but I couldn't eat another bite. I'll have your fine milk and butter for my supper." He rested a few moments longer and then started on his journey again. He decided to take a shortcut through a hot and shadeless moor, but before he was halfway across, his throat was dry and parched and his thirst unbearable. "Thank heavens you're with me," he said to the cow, and immediately began to milk her. But he must have handled the job clumsily, because suddenly the cow gave him a cruel kick, which knocked him over, and once again he lay sprawled on his back by the roadside. Luckily, a jolly butcher happened to pass while driving his pig to market. He helped Hans to his feet and laughed heartily when he heard what happened. "That poor old creature has not given milk for many a year," he roared. "She's only good for the slaughterhouse." "But I can't stand the taste of cow meat," cried Hans. "Now if only I had a good fat pig, I would have all the bacon and sausage I could eat." "Then let's make an exchange," suggested the butcher, who already had decided that the cow would fetch a good price at the market. "I'll take this scrawny beast and give you my pig in return. kind you are, cried Hans, and the trade was quickly made. How lucky I am, Hans chuckled to himself, admiring his prize pig as he dragged her along the dusty road. They had to walk so slowly that soon they were overtaken by a farmer's boy carrying a great white goose. What do you say of my fine bird? Asked the boy proudly. He's a beauty, replied Hans, but my pig is quite a prize too. Take my advice and stay away from the next town, warned the boy. Someone has stolen the squire's prize pig, and he may think you're the thief and throw you in jail. Then what can I do? Cried Hans. I can help you, said the boy. I'm known in town, and they won't think I'm a thief. So let's make an exchange. My goose for your pig. Hans was delighted with the exchange. I'm lucky as always, he thought happily to himself as he strolled down the road. First, my mother will cook an excellent roast from my fine goose. Then, the fat will keep us in goose grease for 6 months. There will be so many beautiful feathers that we shall make soft pillows for each of us. Yes, it's true. Good luck seems to follow me wherever I go. Finally, he came to the last village before his own, and passed a knife grinder working at his grindstone and singing cheerfully. You seem happy at your trade, Hans remarked pleasantly. It's a good one indeed, said the grinder. Knives always get dull and need sharpening, so a knife grinder always has money in his pocket. Now tell me, where did you get that fine goose? I traded it for my pig, answered Hans. And where did you get your pig? The grinder went on. In exchange for the cow I had traded for the horse, which I bought with the gold I earned in 7 years of hard work, replied Hans. And now what you need is money in your pocket, said the grinder. A grindstone is your answer. Let's make an exchange. Your goose for one of my stones. Done, cried Hans cheerfully, and quickly made the exchange. Hans took the heavy stone, already counting the coins that would soon jingle in his pocket. I must have been born under a lucky star, he said once again. I seem to get everything I need without even trying. But the grindstone was heavy, and soon Hans was weary and thirsty. By the time he reached his village, he could barely drag himself to the well. As he reached over to drink, he knocked the grindstone over the side of the well, and down it sank to the very bottom. Hans rubbed his aching shoulders in blissful relief. How lucky